Howdy.
Can you? Hi, how are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. How about yourself?
Good. Am I supposed to be able to see you or no?
No, I only have one camera output, so I have to stick it to the stream, or the camera will freeze. It's a whole
Got-
nightmare.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I am ready to start whenever you are.
Yeah,
Are we live?
oh yes, we are live. We've got a good, reasonably say a good chunk of people here with us. And I have your emailed PowerPoint slides up here. Would you like me to sort of shepherd through them as you direct the conversation?
Sure, that works.
Gotcha. Out of curiosity, how much do you know about my community or outreach?
As much as you talk about on stream about them, I've watched most of your streams. I
Okay,
really enjoy
okay.
your content.
Hell yeah. Well, hey, and I'm sure the feeling is about to be likewise. Okay, yes. I'm sure you understand the majority of the content I do is very irreverent and edgy, so this is actually like comparatively speaking a fairly measured and policy oriented divulge. So hopefully I am capable of processing this big brain information that we're all about to have shared with us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys make me feel old, so that's why I love listening to you guys.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hey, listen, we're all old in spirit these days, okay? The Zoomers are running over TikTok. Everyone over 16 is fucking ancient now, okay? It's
All
not
right.
fair.
Well, we got to brush up on our policy then.
Yeah, hit us up.
All right. So, I am a political community organizer with International Union, and it has been, I'm sure, as you all know, a crazy time to be representing workers and labor right now. About a third of our workers are frontline essential workers. There's lots of things to keep in mind when working with these members. Obviously, we've been working really hard to make sure they have enough protective gear, and that they're safe in their workplaces. Make sure that there's enough coverage, that people aren't overworked and overstressed. About a third of our workers are working from home, which brings about its own challenges. I'm sure, as you know, Vosh, you work from home. I have been working from home too, so certainly challenging in its own right.
I'm in no position to complain.
Well, that's good. I have a 5-year-old son, so trying to balance the.
You might be in a position to complain.
Yeah.
I can barely manage my
Um,
fucking cat.
and about another third of our workers, which unfortunately is too common right now, is they're being furloughed or laid off. And as we are looking forward, a few months, few years out, we know that there is going to be economic downturn, that there will be cuts to budgets. I represent a lot of public employees, so state, federal, county, city governments, and schools are all going to have cuts to their budgets. So these are things that we have to think about when we're thinking about the future.
I
The
have
future.
a question.
Sure.
What does it mean to be furloughed?
Oh, yeah. So furloughed is usually 30 to 60 days. You are still on the payroll. You still have your benefits. You still have your pension. You're not currently being paid. And there is at least the idea that you will be returning back to your work after a couple months. Although
Gotcha.
it doesn't always happen. Sometimes people get laid off. So I have a story that I can go over right now, which is one of our members. We're working with the congressman in the area, but we had 4 members laid off at a clinic in Central California. And one of them had been working there for close to 30 years at this clinic, had a scheduled heart surgery in April,
Mhm.
and was served her layoff papers on March 31st at the end of the day. So had her health care cut off for April. So obviously she couldn't have her heart surgery. And during this time, it's kind of interesting to see layoffs when we're having a pandemic where there's a lot of need for healthcare,
Hmm.
but we are seeing it that all sorts of industries, private and public, are laying off employees, furloughing them. So, and that's kind of the long way around to this PowerPoint or presentation that I wanted to talk to you about.
Another
Um,
long way around, or I think in addition, I think you said this, so I don't know why Chad's confused, but in case you haven't, would you mind introducing yourself specifically and your credentials? Like, I think you said that, but they seem
I don't know if I
confused.
said my name, but my name is Simone, and I am a political and community organizer with an international union. So the PowerPoint that I'm going to go over is our kind of attorney's take on the new federal laws that were passed recently.
Hmm.
Um, and what I'm hoping to get out of this is, you know, providing this information to more people. I think the more people that have the information on how to access federal funds that are being distributed to working class people is better. Obviously, that's something we do with our membership in our union. And the more people that know about this stuff, the better. Um, so, the new federal laws. So we have Families First Corona Response Act, and we also have a new $1 trillion law that is going to come pretty soon. So the Family First Act was passed in March and is effective April 2nd through December 31st of this year. And so one of the things to think about is that a lot of this stuff obviously is coming too late, right? Like this stuff should have been
Oh,
passed back
oh
in.
yeah, this stuff is coming too late. Holy crap. Wait, are either of these proposals, because I don't actually know the formal name, the $1,200 check that Trump personally signed and mailed out to everyone?
No,
Or is that
these are
that's a separate thing? Okay, gotcha.
that's a separate stimulus package, I believe. So this is geared more towards labor and employment, and so obviously, as we were talking about before, some of the layoffs that are happening in the private and public sector. There is a lot of money going towards unemployment, towards the stimulus packages, stuff like that. But it is better to keep an employee or a person employed because they keep their health care, they keep their pension, they keep their benefits. And we would rather see people stay employed throughout this crisis and shelter in place than to lose their job. So that's some of the way that these laws are working is that they're trying to create ways. Um, they're trying to create ways for people to stay employed. So obviously, this stuff was passed. I want to say like in mid-March,
Do
becomes
you
effective.
I'm curious. Do you think it's interesting that the priority is to keep people employed rather than to decouple insurance with employment? Because
Oh no,
it's
I totally agree with you on that. I've heard you talked about it on your streams. I totally agree that we should have healthcare for all, and it shouldn't be coupled with employment. But obviously, we have to work in the systems we have right now, right?
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. I'm not arguing against doing good when we can. It's just it's interesting because it seems like to me like I don't know if I could like if I could think of like a policy, the thing that I would think is like if you've had like insurance in the past like 6 months or something, but you've been laid off because of coronavirus, you keep that insurance. Like the companies can't drop you just because you're no longer employed or something like that. But I guess it's a little more in line with American interests to keep like everyone employed, even if it's kind of like a sham employment system.
Right. And I like that you bring that up because right now, obviously, the future is so uncertain in terms of economics and healthcare and all of these kind of things. And so one of the things, because I think that you deal with a lot of kind of big ideas on your stream, and I'm getting all, grounded in all of these details.
No,
But
please, I want
um,
this.
but one thing I would like to say is that what we need to do right now is we need to lean in and turn the tide to this uncertain future towards, being more helpful for working people, right? Because as you know, the fascists will snatch it up real quick if we allow that. So we need to continue to push for labor rights and all working people
Yeah,
and everyone.
every like realistically speaking, every tragedy, every crisis is an opportunity for populists to take advantage of,
Right.
and we don't want to be losing out on that to to far right groups.
Right. And, like you said, every tragedy, this economic downturn, and I've been on lots of international federal calls about what's going to be happening economically in the future. And it's been compared to the world wars, to the Great Depression. So I don't mean to have any scare tactics here, but what's going to hit, after we deal with the crisis moment, it's not going to return back to normal. We're not snapping back to how things were before. But just because that's not going to happen doesn't mean that we can't have good things happen, right? And we need to keep our eye on the ball and make sure that people who are advocating for equal rights and for labor rights are the ones guiding these conversations and guiding the direction in which we go. And given that, I do think that some of the stuff that has been passed and some of the stuff that has been done at a federal level has been good. I mean, it obviously isn't as good as it could be, like you're saying, decoupling insurance from, people's employment. But we have been doing some things that are going in that direction, I think, and helping workers. So,
I have a
and
question
again,
from
it's
chat already, actually.
sure.
They're curious if the Families First Act, it says that it applies to all employers with less than 500 employees. Would that
Yeah.
would that include school districts?
Um, no. I mean, interesting question. I believe that for public sector, it's going to be a bit different. But great question. I think this is more for private and employers, small businesses.
Gotcha. Thank you. Somebody was curious.
So a lot of this stuff is about sick leave, family paid leave, stuff like that. So there are state guidelines for public employees. So most of the public employees are already going to have at least what this federal law outlines or more. Um, but this is just to make sure that people who are employed by smaller businesses, obviously less than 500 employees, that they're getting at least something. And as someone who works with unions, this stuff just seems so minimal to me. But in all fairness, some employees don't have this stuff, right?
Yes.
So again, as your chat so smartly pointed out, that this applies to employers who have 500 or less. So it creates two new paid leave programs. And this is why I noted earlier this stuff is being passed too late, right? This went effective April 2nd. Probably by this time, most people who really need paid leave um, have already passed a few weeks of needing paid leave, right? Or
Yeah,
shelter
like
in
we're
place
like
or whatever.
like because we had that huge spike around mid-March of all the unemployment claims, but those unemployment claims only come after people have already been laid off. So there's like a huge like month and a half gap for a lot of
Hmm.
people between being laid off and getting any kind of federal support, which is, I mean, that's legitimately insane. Like I can't, like there must be millions of people across this country right now who are like scraping mildew off of like the underside of park benches for nourishment. Like I can't fathom how bad this has gotten for some people.
Right. So all this stuff is coming way too late. And I think when I had reached out to you, I know you have a big backlog, but when I'd reached out to you, this stuff was very important. You know, 2 3 weeks ago. Obviously now people probably run through all this time, but I will kind of outline what this emergency paid leave act does. So if you are a person who is subject to quarantine or isolation related to COVID-19, um, you have to have a doctor's note, which again, as we've heard kind of with the Amazon story of employees and stuff like that, just getting a doctor's note can be its own hurdle, right?
Hmm.
So you could have COVID-19 or live in a house where someone has COVID-19 and not be able to have a doctor's note, and then you can't get time off, right? So, it's not perfect. But and again, if you're caring for children because schools closed due to COVID-19 or experiencing any substantial similar conditions, you're eligible to fulfill any so you are entitled to 80 hours of additional paid sick leave from your employer.
Holy
Um,
shit, that's actually huge.
Yeah, so this is a federal law, and you're entitled to a fraction of the 80 hours equal to fractions of a 40-hour work job. So if you are working less than full time, obviously those hours go down. But if you're a full time employee working for a small business that has less than 500 employees, you are entitled to 2 hour or 2 weeks extra paid sick leave than what you already had. So again, like I was saying, at this point, gosh, I don't even know where we are towards the end of April. A lot of people have probably already taken all this time, right? um,
Yeah,
but
wait.
again,
I have a few questions, if I may, because this is
sure,
actually more substantial than I expected. So
yeah,
obviously, the 80 hours scales with the rate of time that you already work. So it's not going to be 80 hours for everyone. It's not going to be perfect for everyone, but this is good. Question A, though, is if this is referring only to paid sick leave, this doesn't really do anything for all the people who have already been laid off, though, does it?
correct. Yeah. So this would be a situation where if you were a frontline essential worker and your employer was expecting you to come in, and work your job,
Hmm.
whether you're at a grocery store or healthcare clinic, and you said, no, wait, no, I have COVID-19 or my child has COVID-19. I need to take this time off, right? That would be an example. If you're working from home and, you're feeling sick and you can't, work from home, you could invoke this, right? So, and another thing, again, is as we're talking about layoffs and being furloughed and stuff like that, is this can extend um, you know, so that you're not being laid off sooner. So what would happen is if you were to say, I'm entitled to 80 hours of additional paid sick leave from your employer, they would have to pay you for that additional 2 weeks, even if they lay you off, right? You could invoke this and you'll get 2 extra weeks
That's
of
actually
paid
real.
time,
That's actually really sick. So yeah, okay. So this is up to 80 weeks paid time off, or 2 weeks effectively of
80 hours.
yeah, sorry, 80 hours or up to
I
two
wish
weeks.
80
Yeah.
weeks. Let's do
Uh,
it.
no, yeah, absolutely. Radical policy, right? We'll be the one to capitalize on this. But yeah, so 2 weeks more or less of paid sick leave, frontline
Hmm.
workers. That's fantastic,
Hmm.
and that's like a bulwark against unemployment. But
Right. So these are, we will get into unemployment soon.
mhm.
But, ways that we can help people not get on unemployment is good right now only because the demand is so high,
Yeah,
right? So, it's a good solution if we can find. There's actually three buckets of money. There is unemployment money. There is these kind of like paid sick leave, and then obviously the stimulus check, right? So those are kind of the three big buckets of money that we're trying to help working class people um, at least make ends meet. And again, as I said, we are in a crisis mode right now, and we are trying to help people as much as we can with these federal policies. But uh, you can't, just as if you were in a fight or flight mode, you can't stay there forever, right?
yeah.
So even though we are trying to help as much as we can right now with these federal policies, like we can't. This is like a crisis, one time sort of thing, right? And when we're looking at big pictures, obviously, we think that when we're working with these policies that have been passed through the federal government here, is that these are being passed without judgment, right? Nobody's going, oh, those filthy people who need money, right? They're like, oh, we need to help
I'm
everyone
sure
in our
there are a
country
few people taking that approach, but yeah, yeah. I think
for the
this
most part.
right. This is, I mean, this is one of the benefits of crises like this, or a silver lining if you want to be optimistic.
Hmm.
Normally we have such a hyper atomized, like neoliberal culture of individual responsibility that it's
Right.
difficult to push through any policies that acknowledge that, God forbid, people are entitled to a baseline standard of living, even if they're unlucky or even if they don't want to work 60 hours a week. But when stuff like this happens, people are more or less in agreement something needs to be done, and maybe this is our chance to set a new standard. I think, for
Right.
example, like getting some kind of guaranteed paid sick leave, maybe not necessarily 80 hours, but something like that, and keeping it would be spectacular. Like, we
Oh
don't
yeah.
have that.
Well,
Every other
and
country
again,
has that.
as I mentioned before, like as someone who regularly works with union employees, this just to me seems like nothing. But I'm glad that, people who don't have this are going to have the opportunity to have this, right? So, let me go over a few more of the things here.
Mhm.
So let's see. I don't know if you want to get into how much money that could potentially be.
I am
So,
following you along with the PowerPoint. So it says that up to $511 a day, or a total of $5,110, that could be covered under the Paid Sick Leave Act.
right. So it depends obviously on how much you would normally get paid. You should be covered fully for those first 2 weeks. So let's see, you need to be employed for at least 30 days with the employer for this to take place. So if you haven't been working with your employer for 30 days, then you cannot invoke the 2 weeks of paid leave. And obviously if the employer has fewer than 500 employees. And so again, like this does help a lot of people.
Mhm.
But there are obviously employers who are bigger than that, and we need to have our we've actually been talking with our congressman in this area about getting something for employers who are bigger than 500 employees, because that area, there's kind of something for like big corporations, and there's stuff for the under 500, but there's a middle gap there that's kind of been overlooked as of right now.
Right, so there's nothing in this PowerPoint or that you have at the moment that refers to changes or policies being made for over 500 employee businesses. Is that correct?
Not yet, but we, like I said, we are working with Congress to try to fill that gap.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Please, thank you. But yeah. Okay. I mean, one step at a time.
Right. So unpaid leave for the first 10 days, you can use sick leave then. So again, this is saying that you need to FMLA. Are you familiar with FMLA?
Yeah, it's a really good anime. I'm really
I'm
sorry. Please, no, explain to me.
Family Medical Leave Act is so Family Medical Leave Act. Usually, if you are going to have to get surgery or you're going to have to be, out of work for an extended period of time for whatever reason, whether that's for yourself or you have to take care of someone in your family. These are the protections under the Family Medical Leave Act. So this says for the first 10 days, they're either unpaid or you use your own sick time. But the expansion now is that your pay is at a 2/3 of the regular time. Um, let's see, how long do you have?
Oh, I have. Uh,
Up to 12 weeks.
oh,
So you have 12 weeks on Family Medical Leave Act. So if you are able, if you're working, this is an expansion of that. So usually if you're working for a public sector job or a job that has really strong union protections, you would be able to apply for family medical leave. So again, it's not like 100% ideal, but you could be off work for up to 3 months and be paying 2/3 of your regular pay, right?
yeah. Okay. So let me clarify, and I know that right now probably about a third of the people in chat are like trying to follow, but their tiny pea brains are letting them down. So let me sum
No
up if I may.
worries.
So we are talking fundamentally about the the first Coronavirus Response Act. We have the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, which means that if you work for a business with less than 500 employees, you effectively, as long as you can demonstrate that you are in any way being made unable to work for something related to COVID-19, get 2 weeks effectively of paid sick leave, up to $511 a day if you are sick or need to be off, or $200 a day if you're caring for somebody else. In addition, there's the emergency family
Wait,
and
wait, 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 wait,
oh, I fucked it up.
wait. No, you didn't fuck it up. Uh, Karen, no, you're right. You're correct. I just want to make sure. Okay.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, cool. All right. And then we've got the Emergency Family Medical and Leave Act expansion, which is the stupidest name I've ever read. But if if you've been with an employer for at least 30 days and that employer has less than 500 employees and you get sick or you got to take care of a kid or something, then you get unpaid leave for 10 days. But that would overlap with the paid sick leave that you get from the first provision, which you would benefit from as well. And then for the remainder of your time off due to sickness, you get paid two-third your regular rate for your regular number of hours, but no more than 200 a day, up to $10,000. That's a huge deal.
Right, and that's for yeah, 12 weeks. Yeah.
Oh,
So
12
yeah,
weeks, yeah.
these are really good programs that have been expanded. Again, like I said, a lot of people who work public sector jobs or who have strong unions would already have those kind of benefits, but it is expanded obviously through this program. So this is federal stuff that has been passed. I also in this PowerPoint have some of the California laws. I don't know if that's something you would want to go over. I live in California, but I know a lot of people in your stream don't.
Yeah. So the next segment is California specific. Hit us with it because maybe we can see what is California generally has pretty good statewide policies. Let's see what does a good state do to deal with this? Hit us up. I'm in
Sure.
Washington right now. Washington, I know, epicenter of the virus here in America. I know that this is also a fairly left leaning state, so I know we've got some cool provisions. But let's use California as a template,
Right. As California goes, the nation goes.
if
Um,
only.
Paid Sick Leave Act. Okay. So again, the state law requires employers to provide up to 3 days of paid sick leave a year. So that's just standard, right?
Hmm.
Um, as
Well,
the state
three
law.
whole days. Gotcha.
Whew,
Yeah, I know.
don't get too sick now.
Yeah, whiplash from all this progress.
So you must have worked at your employer again with for at least 30 days. And some employers may extend that out to a 90-day employment required. And sometimes you might work for an employer who doesn't give you your health insurance till 30 days. It's kind of like a probation period.
Right.
Um, so this may be used for a family member if you're quarantined. So that's 3 days. Woohoo! Congratulations, guys. Moved to California.
Now, well,
Um,
actually, that's 3 days, but you get it after being with an employer for 30 days, meaning that if you tactically leave jobs and get new jobs right afterwards, as much as a tenth of your total working life can be on paid sick leave.
there you go. We need big brain people like you out there. All right. So the Paid Family Leave Act. If unavailable to work because you're quarantined, um, or your family members are quarantined because of COVID-19. Your Paid Family Leave Act can get you up to 8 weeks of paid leave, paid at 60 to 70% of your regular wages, which is somewhere between $50 and $1,300 per week, obviously depending on your original pay or salary. And you need to have a medical certification of quarantine for that to be in effect.
Okay, that's
So,
that's pretty good. I think that's a
yeah,
pretty good. Well, I'm trying to think. I have a trouble grasping. So $1,300 a week. That would be about 50K a year. So yeah, the highest level this could pay out would be a fairly middle class income.
right.
But it's not not lower.
But even if
Yeah.
yeah, you would be getting between, I think it said 60 to 70% of your normal wages for 2 months. So obviously it's not completely ideal, and you would probably be stretching your dollars, but it's better than having nothing, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Of course, of course, of course. I'm always interested because I've always felt like something that really fascinates me is what level of care and comfort can we guarantee to the average citizen just as a baseline? How much money do we really have, you know? And I think,
Mhm.
right now, modern industrialized society is so efficient. I feel like if we really geared our society towards it and maybe, nationalize some industries, probably every human in America could live like a middle class lifestyle just as a baseline. But it would require a massive restructuring of our economy. And I'm interested in policies like these because I think it indicates to anyone who's paying attention that a lot of the stuff we say the government can't do, it can. We're just not really willing to have those conversations, you know?
Oh no, yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. So I'll go over a few more of these that are going on in California. We have if people have been laid off or hours have been substantially reduced, so this is unemployment insurance due to COVID-19, their partial wage replacement is at about 60%, ranging from 40 out. Wait, $40. That says ranges from. So
I'm seeing
I'm not.
40 a week to 450 a week. That seems a smidge on the low side.
Yeah, that's not correct. That might be a typo. But this can go for 26 weeks. Only California benefits, not undocumented. So I know that that was one of the criticisms of the federal stimulus package as well, right? Is
Hmm.
that it only goes to people with social security numbers. California did pass, Governor Newsom passed a bill to give money to undocumented people in California. So it was $1,000 per family, and I think it was 300 or 500 for additional dependents, as a one-time check, similar to what the federal government was giving out, right?
Hmm.
Um, let's see, state disability insurance. If you are unable to work due to medical quarantine or illness, your benefits are 60 to 70% of wages for 52 weeks. Um,
Jesus Christ. Nobody stays sick for that long. Well, no, okay, wait,
um,
sorry, that was a little bit reductive. I should say, generally speaking, people recover from COVID-19 quite a bit faster than that. Um,
So this is state disability. So usually this is like if you got sick due to COVID-19 and there was complications or there
okay.
was some reason you needed long-term care, obviously you would need to have a doctor's note. You would need to have, some proof that something happened, to that you are disabled and cannot work, right?
Yeah, this seems like a maybe I'm a little bit uneducated on the issue. This seems like a fairly generous policy, a fairly generous disability insurance, or am I perhaps have my standards been set too low?
It's, it is a good one, I will say that,
Okay.
but it's fairly standard in California. The proof for disability, so you have to apply for SDI, and it does take a few weeks to kick in, and you again have to have substantial evidence, and criteria is met to be able to be granted it. So I do know people who have had trouble with employment, mental disabilities, just different things that where they have tried multiple times to apply for it and they haven't got it.
That's
So,
my
it.
that's something I'm really concerned about because like a lot of these policies are really good, but they're all barred behind some kind of medical recognition. Like earlier you
Mhm.
said for the earlier stuff, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, you need like a doctor's note to fulfill the conditions of the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. But like I wonder if like arms are going to be pulled like hey be scrupulous when assigning these, like we don't want
Mhm.
fakers coming in and getting their fake sick leave, because they had a
Right.
cough the other day. I really hope that this ends up practically working and it doesn't get gate kept behind like a system trying to prevent them from accessing these benefits.
Well, what would help that out would be, you know, uh, Medicare for all. um,
True! So true! True. Very true.
So I have an interesting story there. That I'm obviously upper middle class. Have good health insurance through my employer, and I was exposed to COVID-19 back in late March. Woke up sick one morning. Let my boss know and found out fairly soon after that somebody who had COVID-19 had gone to our office and we had to shut our office down. Obviously, everyone's shut down now, but
Hmm.
this was like mid March. So, from the time that I was told that to the time that I reached out to my doctor, got a test, less than a few days, and got my test results back in, a day or two after that. So, for me, having fairly good health insurance, being upper middle class, being white, being whatever it is, right?
Hmm.
I was able to be diagnosed. I luckily did not have COVID-19, but I had access to all of that, right? Whereas a lot of people reached out to me and were like, "How do I get a test?" So like the majority of people in the city I live in, it can. their whether it's their doctors or their medical insurance or whatever will not even test them. So like obviously, yeah, like you said, everything's barred behind having
I
medical
mean,
certification.
that was Trump's like argument to begin with. Remember, he was saying like, "Don't get tested. We don't want everyone getting tested." Remember, that was like mid
Oh,
March.
I don't listen to him, so
Okay, I remember him. If time is moving so slowly, like Super Tuesday was 5 weeks ago. It's insane.
hmm
Yeah, so I do remember that being a thing that happened though. Like we are trying to discourage people from getting tested in large part because the more people get tested, the higher the numbers are going to be, and the higher the numbers are going to be, the worse the administration looks. So we're actually trying to,
yeah,
sort of curtail
actively
that.
prevent that. Yeah, that's awful.
Yeah.
So that was other than we covered the state disability, workers comp. Let's see if there's anything interesting here. Uh, Not really. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, if you have time, I don't know what your time looks like,
Yeah, I
is
got time. Do you mind? By the way,
unem-
do you mind if I put you on cam?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I've had your PowerPoint up until this point. Yeah, hold on. Let me get this. Please continue.
So we do, I represent county employees, and I don't know how aware everyone is, but county employees are the ones that approve and give out unemployment. And up until a few weeks ago, the biggest week for unemployment was close to 500,000 people applying for unemployment in a given week. About 2 weeks ago, we had 16.3 million people in the United States apply for unemployment. So, obviously, these public sector workers are essential frontline workers who are working to approve unemployment. And as you said, there's about a 6 week backlog of people. So, if you became unemployed tomorrow and you called to get unemployment, well, first of all, good luck getting through.
Right.
Second of all, if you do, then you have, probably a few months before you see a check, which, as I had stated to you earlier, Vosh, which is, I'm happy that a lot of these things are being passed and a lot of these things are happening, but
Hmm.
they're happening too late, right? This
Yes.
all should have been done a long time ago. Um, so yeah, the unemployment situation, unfortunately, is really difficult, and we need to move things, and kind of like you were stating earlier, this all of this kind of sets a precedent of how things can be in the future, right? We can provide unemployment for 16 million people. We can, provide paid 2 weeks of paid sick leave for all employees in the United States. We can do these things, and it doesn't have to bankrupt us, or we don't have to judge people because they need 2 weeks off of sick pay. So there's a lot of bills that have been passing while we're in the crisis, but what I'm really kind of focused on right now is looking to the future and what is this going to mean 3 months from now, a year from now, when the economy does take a downturn, when there are cuts to budgets. We've been working really hard to strengthen our union membership, strengthen the amount of money that union members are giving to PACs or COPEs, which are our ability to do political advocacy on behalf of the union. So these are things that are going to be really important in the near future. And if we aren't strengthening our unions, aren't strengthening our labor rights, or even just any sort of community organizing and pushing for things to go in the right direction, we could miss a moment, right?
Yes.
This is a moment where these sort of policies are being passed, and that we can say, hey, look, we can continue to do this. It doesn't have to just be for a crisis moment, right?
Yeah. So I have so many thoughts on this because like I don't there's fundamentally something a little bit like crass about trying to like push a political agenda through a tragedy, but it is ultimately like that's just the way the world works. Like you can't like if you give up those opportunities, other worse people will do the exact same thing. There's no practical reason to avoid doing so, but it makes it a little bit difficult to talk about this in sort of broader terms. Um, I do believe that everything we've gone over while talking, or that you've gone over, has been a provision that could have easily been provided to us now for decades. That is now
Mhm.
only being given sort of begrudgingly as an attempt to keep like us from dying.
Right. Of course.
Right, yeah, and I think the difficulty is going to be like rhetorically speaking, helping people understand that the reason the economy is doing poorly is because of the virus, not because the government is providing people sick leave, insurance and what have you. I think there's going to be this big push after COVID-19 kind of washes over us for to remove these protections, and they'll do so by justifying the cohabilitation of those laws being passed and the economy taking a downward turn. Like, oh look, we can't sustain this. This is
Oh,
unsustainable.
absolutely. Yep.
So
Oh,
we're gonna have to like really really fight to point out like, hey, there was nothing wrong with those laws. They didn't hurt us in the slightest. The problem was the virus. Why go back to the way things were? Why go back to normal?
oh, totally. Well, I mean, the thing is that when you're looking at budgets, you have to assume that the biggest piece of the budget is going to be for employees, right? And what's going to happen is there's going to be an economic downturn, and the whether it's a school board or a board of supervisor or the state government, they're going to argue, oh, well, we got to cut people's wages, right?
Yeah.
Because we have 3 million less dollars than we did last year, right? Where a union would advocate, no, you don't need to cut people's wages, right? That's always going to be the biggest portion of your budget is to pay your employees, and so I think there needs to be a focus on, using budgets, using particularly government budgets to pay employees and make sure that they have as a robust benefits and pay as possible, because that's how we're obviously going to have a good society. And I know that's important to you, Vosh, is, good outcomes. That's
Yeah.
how I see good outcomes, right?
Yeah.
Is people having the things that they need.
Yeah, of course. And we need to, and I guess this is more in line with my interest than yours because this is my job, but we need to be ready to counter like all of the conservative prop that's going to come out. The moment they get the chance. I think like right now there are people who are literally marching for the right to go out and get sick. Like they're blocking ambulances from returning to hospitals. I mean, like Trump is tweeting about it. It's great. It's very funny. But
Right.
I think one of the biggest things we're going to have to combat here is this idea that people I'm telling you, they're going to be embarrassed that they're taking this help. Guaranteed. There are going to be people, largely conservative leaning, but also just a lot of old folk, who feel like this, like they're being their pride is being compromised for having to take government assistance or for there being laws. They want to get back out there. They want to go back out there. They want to get back to work. They want to show their boss, how good they can lick boots. And they're not
Mhm.
going to stop to consider that they're normalizing the continued existence of a lower state of material comfort that is completely like inconsequential for our country to maintain.
I mean, I agree with you. I just think that, those people aren't living in reality. I
Yeah, I
don't know
mean,
what else to say.
you don't think social distancing is communism? Can you, as a public policy advocate, can you please explain to me? Do you or do you not believe that social distancing is communism?
I have no idea how those two are correlated.
We'll find a way. We'll
But
find a way.
yeah, but I do believe you should be social distancing.
Yeah.
And I do believe in communism. So, maybe there's more there than I thought.
You know, what's really weird? Because one of the things it's like the common question amongst lefties: do the rich despise us or do they just not care? I've always been of the opinion they don't really care about us. It's like Parasite, you know? They're just like, they're ditzy, they're living their own lives, and they
Hmm.
usually just kind of see us as products of an inevitable abstract divide. And one of the products of that is being able to distance yourself from what other people are going through. And as a now well off person who works from home, my life hasn't been affected at all. Not literally. When I go out to grocery shop, I like walk around people. That's it. That's the entire difference. But there are
Yeah.
people whose lives are on the precipice of destruction here. And it's just, I think it's a very strong reminder that just a slight difference in material circumstances can make it very difficult to empathize with what most people are going through.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, I spend, probably 60 plus hours a week listening to workers' stories about what has been happening to them over the course of the last, what, 5, 6 weeks now. And there's a whole range. A lot of these programs have helped people to the extent that they're getting more money now than they did when they were working and they're at home, right? There are people who, like you said, um, can't afford their mortgage or, can't afford their health insurance anymore. So there's a wide range of things happening in our nation right now to working people. And it's hard to address all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we need to continue to pass these sort of policies where people are going to be able to make it through this crisis. And again, as I said before, I wish I had more answers for you in the chat about what is going to need to happen in the next 3 months or a year. Of course, as always, the right wing or the alt right is gonna have their own point of view of what's happening. But absolutely, it's not the fault of these policies that there's going to be an economic downturn. But what we need to do is make sure that everybody is going to be able to make it through the next few years as we go through an economic depression. And I think personally that we are getting closer to Medicare for all. We are getting closer to, more insurances and paid sick time off and all these things. Even though it might feel like on a day-to-day basis that things are going backwards, like we are slowly marching forward and these things are getting better.
Yeah. No, I do agree. Well, except for the coronavirus. That actually very distinctly is worse now than it was, a
10
year
years
ago.
ago.
Yeah, yeah. 10 years ago, coronavirus, wasn't even a problem.
I know.
Yeah. Now
So is there
we're
any
blowing up.
questions for me or?
Chat, I don't have any. Chat, throw them up. In the meantime, how's your day going?
Oh, it's lovely.
Are
I
you
don't know
like
what it's like in
outside?
Washington. Yeah, I set up my ironing board in the backyard. Got to get away from the kid and the cat and all the loud noises.
Gotcha. Fair and reasonable. It looks beautiful where you are. Is this just your backyard? It's such a nice like overhang thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I had a friend build this. It's very nice.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, how's your day?
It's going pretty good. I don't know what the weather is like outside, but I feel like all the heat in my house just directs itself into the room that I stream in, and I've got my big body, and I've got a bunch of expensive heat producing machines, and whoo boy, it is real
Oh yeah,
warm in here right now.
I've been hearing you yell at those kids outside. Makes me think of my kid.
Oh, don't get me into it. Is there anything? Okay. Is there anything being done for contractors like Uber drivers and the like?
Oh, that is a great question. So honestly, I know some stuff has been happening in California. So, if we're thinking that California is setting the pace, this might be helpful. But so, and again, the stuff with independent contractors is trying to get them to employment status because it's really illegal and unmoral of what they have been doing to independent contractors. They don't provide any health insurance, any benefits, any pension, anything like that, and they're taxed so hard. So, and I think probably you're an independent contractor too, right, Vosh? Or you might have filed taxes differently, but um, it's really difficult for those people, and we're trying to get them to employee status, and I know that's happening in California, but I would guess that the question was in relations to COVID-19, and I haven't heard anything in relations to that. In fact, I don't even know if you are an independent contractor if you could apply for unemployment. My
Gotcha.
guess is that you should be able to,
Well, I
but
certainly
I'm not.
can, but yeah. Uh, for excuse me. For do these provisions that we've discussed, the national ones, do they apply to healthcare workers?
Absolutely. Yep.
So earlier you said that school districts wouldn't really apply. Some hospitals are public, no?
Yeah. So again, any public employee should already be getting this level of, Family Medical Leave Act, paid sick leave, all those sorts of stuff. If you're a public employee, that should already be written into your employment contract. So these expansions are mostly for small businesses.
Gotcha. Um, I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse, but somebody asks, would it still be possible to get the 1.2K check if I were to complete my 2019 tax returns now? My 2018 returns didn't qualify me.
As far as I know, if you haven't turned in your 2019 taxes yet, they'll just go based off of your 2018 tax return.
So, so probably not. If the 2018 didn't qualify, it's probably too late to throw the 2019 in there.
Right. Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Right.
Um, this is, I think, I'm sort of interpreting this question from chat. What do you think the worst case scenario is with COVID-19? Not with the policies, but with the disease itself. I know that we're still a while out from a vaccine. Do you think that this is going to burn through anytime soon, or may we continue to suffer this for another year?
I wish that I had an answer to that question. I probably would be able to make a whole lot more money if I did. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. All I can say is that if we're doing what's best for our nation and our world as a whole, we're gonna have to stay in place for a while. I don't see it. I don't see the shelter in place ending anytime, relatively soon. I would say probably the best bet would be end of the summer. Would probably be the earliest that shelter in place and stuff could be lifted. Um, and that's, of course, given that we're doing what the best thing is for public health and not
Hmm.
just what politicians want.
Yes.
um, and if the shelter in place was released sooner than that, because they want the economy to go back to what it was, or whatever lame excuse it is, then obviously that could put us in an even worse situation where we're dealing with this for many more years to come. So I'm hoping that public health will win out in terms of the strategy of how to deal with this in the long term. Economically, there is going to be effects, for the next few years, especially on state and local and federal budgets. That's kind of my, as you say, wheelhouse. What I'm looking at all the time is, budgets of county or of governments. So whether that's a county or a city or a state or the federal government,
Hmm.
and it will be bad for the next few years. But we can't let that be at the cost of workers, right? Workers are the ones that make this country keep going. Like, obviously, we've seen, the grocery workers, healthcare workers, the mailmen, and women, of course. All of these people keep our country going. And I think that we're recognizing that now more than ever as the shelter in place is happening. Sorry, I kind of went off on a rant.
No, that's okay. I think the rant went in a good direction. Chad is very interested in hearing your opinion on trans rights.
Oh, trans rights all the way.
I was I am unsurprised by this answer. I really appreciate you coming on to speak with me.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It's a little different than what I normally do, and I love to reach out to new audiences, and hopefully you guys found it interesting and educational.
Yeah, we can
Hopefully
say
I'm not
bad
too
words
boring
here.
and old for you guys.
No, 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 no. No, I really appreciate it. I apologize for taking so long to get back to you and to have you on stream. It is by far the most difficult part, I think, of this job is the sheer deluge of emails that I receive, and I have to
You need to get a scheduler. Come on.
selectively. I am a control freak, but yeah. Anyway, I'm very happy to have had you on. I really appreciate it. Do you have any socials you want to shout out? There are people who are asking about your Twitter.
Oh gosh, I do have a Twitter. How do you shout that out? I'm
Just type it
sorry.
to me in Discord chat, and I can share it with them.
Um, Also tell Hyena hi.
Hyena. Hello. I'll tell her in person too.
Okay. I think I sent it to you.
Nailed it.
I don't have like an avatar and a code name or whatever. I just use my real name. My family and myself have been involved with politics for decades, and I always figure, if people are watching me, it's already done.
Gotcha.
When I was growing up, my dad was like, they're tapping the phone lines, right? I'm like, we're
Yeah.
all being listened to.
Yeah, it's eventually, it becomes a sort of moot point.
Yeah.
All right, I've thrown it in chat. Thank you again so much for speaking with me. I really appreciate it. I do hope you are successful in your ongoing effort to push for more, progressive policies being made with regards to COVID relief. And hopefully we don't all die.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. And thank you for all the work that you do in pushing people to the left. I really appreciate that. And, you've fostered a great community. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. That was fun.